Hello, fellow Planeswalkers. DMFF here, and today I have a new deck showcase for you all. Unfortunately, my Delirium Shadow deck has been repeatedly hit on the past several ban lists, and therefore has been retired. This new deck here is here to fill the void of its absence. This deck combines some ideas in the previously named deck in that it is also a Delirium deck, which synergizes well with a Reanimator strategy. For these reasons, I decided to go with a Mardu mid-range shell, utilizing solid removal, counterplay, and hand grip. First, we will go into the Delirium portion of the deck. Delirium is the backbone that the rest of the deck builds itself upon. Delirium gives many cards additional effects, while there are 4 or more different card types in our graveyard. A strategy like this requires ways to get cards in our graveyard, not just for itself and the beneficiaries of Delirium, but also for our mid to late game Reanimator strategy. First, to set the Delirium, fetch lands are a great way to get themselves into the graveyard, the premier way to get lands into the graveyard while thinning our deck. Faithless Looting is the premier spell for digging through our deck while dumping cards in the grave. It also has the benefit of flashback. Mishra's Bauble is our premier cantrip for the deck that, as an artifact, puts itself in the grave. Being able to see the top card of our deck before using a fetch or a looting is amazing, but also having the ability to see an opponent's scry or something like that is great too. Judge's Familiar is a niche pick, but the premier way to get a creature in our graveyard. This little flyer can help protect us in situations or even deter some of our opponent's plays early on. Dragon's Rage Channeler is unique in its role compression. Not only is it easy to get cards into the grave with this card, but it also benefits from Delirium being active. Unmarked Grave can be used to dump specific targets into the grave for many purposes. Help get Delirium active, send a Reanimation target, or even send Unburial Rites to use its cheaper flashback cost. Bitter Triumph is removal that can be used to ditch cards if needed into the graveyard. We can also pay life instead of discarding in other situations. Now that we have our Delirium set with all these different ways to get cards into the graveyard, here are the beneficiaries. Dragon's Rage Channeler, as mentioned earlier, has all the upside of getting cards into the graveyard, and while Delirium is active, it becomes a 3/3 flyer on top of it. So it keeps its Surveil ability while still being a 3/3 flyer, so it is effectively like a way better version of Delver of Secrets. Demonic Council is literally Demonic Tutor in Modern under Delirium. In a pinch, we can search for a single demon in our deck if it gets turned off. Unholy Heat is one of the best 1 converted mana cost removal spells under Delirium, hitting creatures and planeswalkers for 6 damage. Nethergoyf, while not having Delirium itself, gets larger with each different type in our graveyard. Finally, Barbarian Ring, while also not having Delirium, has Threshold instead, which gets itself working with 7 or more cards of any kind in our graveyard. This is a solid option for a red land that can be used to snipe things or even wins in the mid to late game. Now that was Delirium. Next we go on to the Reanimation portion of our deck. With all these different cards going to the graveyard, it makes sense to bring some of them back. Persist is the main card to reanimate creatures in this meta. Unburial Rites is a nice secondary reanimate spell that has its flashback cost cheaper than its original cost. Sun Titan, oddly enough, is a unique role compressor itself by being a solid reanimation target that reanimates a smaller target on ETB. Now, the two main cards that we will be reanimating in this deck are going to be Archon of Cruelty, because it is obviously the most powerful reanimation target in Modern right now. But the other one, as mentioned earlier, is Sun Titan, which is a big body that reanimates a 3-drop or lower on ETB or attack, which can really help swing momentum favorably very quickly. For this reason, the deck also has a copy of Lotus Bloom to have the ability to abuse it from the graveyard and effectively be reanimating Black Lotus. This can also help ramp us by grabbing lands from the graveyard, because it's any permanent that's 3-drop or lower, and technically lands are 0-drops, so it falls under those parameters. Any of our solid creatures with higher stats are also excellent choices to reanimate. Finally, we have the Texts from the Crypt. What's a deck without its tech cards? These tech cards round out the overall mid-range shell and help in supporting the core strategy with removal and hand rip. I will not be covering Judge's Familiar or Bitter Triumph, as they were mentioned prior, due to being texts that fit directly into the strategy's core goal. Death Shadow and Scourge of the Skyclaves are one of emergency buttons when we need to tutor up or reanimate big damage. Scourge is also the one demon we mentioned earlier that we run for Demonic Council if Delirium gets turned off. Fel the Profane is versatile in being removal or a mono shock land, making it useful in all stages of the game. Inquisition of Kozilek and Thoughtseize are excellent hand rip cards that give you information of your opponent's hand. Knowledge is power. Lightning Bolt is the classic versatile option that deals 3 damage to any target. Can remove creatures, planeswalkers, or even help close out games by targeting face. Lotus Bloom, as mentioned earlier, can help make big burst plays early mid-game and even late game. As mentioned prior, it can be abused from the graveyard with Sun Titan. Prismatic Ending allows us to exile anything with 3 CMC or less, except for lands. Wish is a singleton that can grab some of our sideboard stuff to help in Game 1 for a variety of purposes. Witch Enchanter can be artifact enchantment removal on a body at not a terrible rate, while doubling as a mono shock land as well. Can also be reanimated for surprise removal of an artifact or enchantment. Quickly, we will go over some of these sideboard cards that can be played with Wish, but can also be slotted in games 2 or 3. All 15 of these are useful for Wish or for siding in. So here we go. We have 1 copy of Dawn's Truce to be able to protect our board and even ourselves in a pinch against burn, against hand rip strategies. They are going to draw a card if you make your board indestructible to block board wipes, but sometimes that is necessary. We have 2 copies of Reprieve that is basically Remand in white. 2 Surgical Extraction to be able to hit some of our opponent's combo pieces and is an excellent target for Wish Game 1. Teamer Battle Rage to eke out just a little bit more damage against control matchups. Wear Tear is excellent removal of both artifacts and enchantments and can be fused together for a total of 3 converted mana cost to remove 1 of each. Break the Ice is for those Tron decks specifically with an overload that can just completely decimate them. Alpine Moon is another one that is part of this Break the Ice strategy that will turn off Tron in particular. Both Break the Ice and Alpine Moon are great with Wish, but can also be sided into the deck games 2 and 3. 1 copy of Meltdown is great mass artifact removal when needed against those pesky artifact decks. An additional copy of Persist is in our sideboard that is a great target for Wish if we get Surgical to game 1 or something. Toxic Deluge is a great board wipe for this deck, as we can essentially adjust how much we want to pay and how much we want to give -X to everything on the board. Finally, we have Ashiok Dreamrender, who is here just to be able to turn off searching through the library of our opponents, which is devastating for most decks, as most decks run fetch lands. A lot of decks do have some kind of tutor or some kind of way to cheat things out of the deck. Things like that, we can turn that off entirely with Ashiok Dreamrender. In summary, with Delirium to help set itself up for its own strong plays, it also helped set up mid and late game plays by sending reanimation targets to the graveyard. All of this is supported within a Mardu mid-range core, utilizing solid removal options, some counter options, and the powerful hand rip. Combining these forces together makes a resilient and solid strategy. I hope you all enjoyed the deck. If you did, why not give this video a like, possibly subscribe and ding that bell, so then you could be notified of future deck techs or even some of my other video uploads. Thank you so much, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.